Dear students, welcome back to my channel. So in this class, let us continue the application of Gauss law. In my last class, we have discussed about the first application of Gauss law. So that is deriving the expression for electric intensity at a point due to uniformly charged spherical shell using that Gauss law, isn't it? Similarly, in this class, let us continue the application. So this is the second application of Mr. Gauss. So which will be asked for 5 mark in your annual examination or midterm examination or preparatory examination. Okay, so it says that derive an expression for electric intensity at a point due to an infinitely long straight uniformly charged wire using Gauss law. Okay. In order to derive the expression for electric intensity using Gauss law, you have to remember 3 rules that I have taught in the last class, isn't it? Which are those 3 rules? The rule number 1 says, imagine a Gaussian surface symmetrical to the charge distribution. The second one, calculate the total flux through the entire Gaussian surface. And the third one, equate that total flux with the Gaussian equation phi is equal to Q divided by epsilon naught, isn't it? Okay, anyhow, so let us derive an expression for electric intensity due to uniformly charged infinitely long wire using this Gauss law. Okay, fine. See, as the question itself indicates, let us consider an infinitely long wire on this board. Is it really possible to imagine an infinitely long wire on the board? No, it is impossible. So, using dotted lines, just we can represent an infinitely long wire. Okay. Now, say for example, this wire is having positive charges on its surface. That is, wire is positively charged. Fine. Let us concentrate on two line elements. For example, P1 and P2. Line elements means the small portions of the wire which are responsible for finding the electric intensity at a point. Okay, fine. Let O be the center of these points P1 and P2. That is line elements P1 and P2. If we treat this P1, P2 as a line, then O would be its center, exactly at the center. Now, let us consider a point P, where actually we want to find out the electric intensity due to this infinitely long wire. For example, P is at a distance of some small r from this midpoint. Here, this line OP acts as the perpendicular bisector for this line P1, P2. Okay, now, since this line element is having a positive charge, here at point capital P, the direction of electric field due to this P1 is outwards or inwards. Since it is positive, it is outwards. Like this. I will call this as some even vector. Next, due to this P2 is also having positive charge. Therefore, it is also outwards. And you will mark this as some E2. Okay. The resultant of E1 and E2 will be along this direction. We know that both P1 and P2 are at the same distance from this point P. Moreover, they are having the same charge having magnitude, same magnitude. Therefore, the value of E1 and E2 will be same. Therefore, the resultant will be along this direction. Otherwise, by knowing the value of theta, exact value of theta, we can resolve this E1 into E1 sin theta and E1 cos theta, but it is not required in this case here because it is a perpendicular bisector. Both the angles theta will be same. If we split this E1 into horizontal and vertical components, similarly E2 into vertical and horizontal components, these two components will be having same magnitude but opposite in direction. Therefore, they will cancel with each other. No need to take the concept of theta over here. Okay, fine. So, the resultant of E1 and E2 will be E, and it is outwards from point P. Okay, fine. Next, how to follow these three rules of Mr. Gauss means the first rule what it says, imagine a Gaussian surface symmetrical to the charge distribution. Okay. If we go to the macroscopic view of any conducting wire, for example, this is a wire. If you zoom it, then it looks like a cylinder, isn't it? Because the macroscopic form of a wire gives us the cylinder. Therefore, we have to imagine a cylindrical closed boundary over here. Okay, fine. See, this point is P1. This point is P2. Positive charges are present here. This midpoint is O, and here the point P lies at a distance of some small r. Now let us draw one closed boundary here. See, like this, we should consider the closed boundary, because the macroscopic form of a wire gives us the cylinder. Next, here R acts as the radius of the cylinder. Let L be the length of this cylinder, that is Gaussian cylinder. This is nothing but Gaussian cylinder, which is a closed one. Okay, see, this Gaussian cylinder is having two flat areas. These two are the flat area and this is the curved area. I will mark this as A1. The direction of A1 is always perpendicular or normal to the surface, isn't it? Area vector. If we consider this board as the area, then its direction will be towards you, like that. Okay. Similarly, here the second area vector is also outwards, that is perpendicular to this flat surface. The direction of A3 is upwards. This is the curved area, curved surface area. What is the direction of electric field? The direction of electric field is outwards, like this, isn't it? Both the diagrams you have to write in the annual examination. See, now we have followed the first rule of Gauss, that is, we have imagined a Gaussian surface symmetrical to the charge distribution. Moreover, we are taking this wire we are keeping this wire in the presence of vacuum. No need to say that, you have to understand it, because all physics experiments except sound experiments are valid only in case of vacuum. Okay, fine. Next, we have to follow the second rule. What it says? Calculate the total flux through the entire Gaussian surface. Okay. The total electric flux through the Gaussian cylinder is given by phi is equal to phi1 plus phi2 plus phi3. Phi1 means flux through this flat area A1. Phi2 means this flux through this flat area A2. Similarly, phi3 means flux through this curved area A3. Okay. Expansion form of phi1 says E A1 cos theta 1 plus similarly E A2 cos theta 2 plus E A3 cos theta 3. Okay, see, what is the angle between E and A1? That is theta 1. What is the value of theta 1? We can write here. E is along this direction, E1 is along this direction. Therefore, angle between them is 90 degree. Yes, without any doubt. E A1 cos 90 plus. Similarly, E is along this direction, A2 is along this direction. Again, the angle will be 90 degree. Therefore, E A2 cos 90 degree plus E A3. What is the value of this curved surface area in a cylinder? The surface area of this curved portion, curved surface. This is just like a circle, therefore 2 pi r, and this is the length L, therefore 2 pi RL. 2 pi RL. What is the theta 3? What is the angle between E and A3? They are along same direction, therefore that is cos 0. So even a small baby knows cos 90 is equal to 0. Again cos 90 is equal to 0, but cos 0 is equal to 1. Therefore, I will take only this much. E into 2 pi R L. This is the total flux through that entire Gaussian cylinder. So call it as equation number 1. So by this we have followed the second rule also, that is we have calculated the total flux. There we have considered the imaginary boundary, which is a closed one, first rule up to here. This is the second rule. Next, third rule says compare this total flux with the Gaussian equation phi is equal to Q by epsilon naught. Therefore, we know that according to Gauss law, phi is equal to Q divided by epsilon naught. Call it as equation number 2. Compare 1 and 2. Comparing equation 1 and 2, we get, use on comparing equation 1 and 2, we get, see, LHS are same, therefore RHS has to be same, therefore E into 2 pi RL is equal to Q divided by epsilon naught. On rearranging the terms, we get E is equal to 1 by 2 pi epsilon naught Q divided by R into L, isn't it? Okay, fine. Next, what is this Q divided by L represents? That Q divided by L represents linear charge density of that conducting wire. That is, charge per unit length of the conductor is called linear charge density. Therefore, E is equal to 1 by 2 pi epsilon naught lambda by R. This is the expression for electric intensity at a point due to uniformly charged infinitely long wire using Gauss law. In vector form, E vector is equal to 1 by 2 pi epsilon naught lambda divided by R into n cap, where n cap is, what is that n cap? If you write n cap along the direction of E, everything is positive here, means E and n are along the same direction. We can write it is a radial unit vector. Why I am using the radial unit vector means because that unit vector is in case of circular, I mean this curved surface. Therefore, radial unit vector along capital E vector. What does it mean? The direction of E vector and n vector are same. This n vector is perpendicular to that curved surface at that given point. Okay, it is going upwards in the direction of electric field. Otherwise, one can also write this equation as 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught 2 lambda divided by R. Like this also we can write, because so there is a ready-made value for this 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, that is 9 into 10 power 9, isn't it? Therefore, we can also write that equation in terms of 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Okay, fine. Let me briefly explain once again. So it is an important 5-mark derivation. See here, we have to imagine an infinitely long wire which is represented already by with the help of dotted lines. Okay. So we have to consider two line elements just like this, P1 and P2. At some point P, where actually we need the electric intensity or electric field, we have to consider that point P at a distance some smaller from the midpoint of that line P1, P2. Okay, now here we have considered two line elements P1 and P2. Therefore, we will expect two electric fields E1 and E2. Since positive charges are present over there, so the outward direction we will take. The resultant of E1 and E2 would be capital E vector. Okay. Next, still we haven't followed a single rule of Gauss. What is the first rule of Gauss law? We have to imagine a closed surface symmetrical to the charge distribution, isn't it? Therefore, we will imagine a Gaussian boundary. Okay, now see P1 I have wrote here, P2 I have wrote here. This distance I have taken as the radius of the Gaussian cylinder. The direction of electric field I wrote as it is. Now, a cylinder consists of three areas, two flat areas and one curved area. So this is the area 1 vector flat area, area 2 vector, area 3 vector. Let L be the length of the Gaussian cylinder, R be the radius of the Gaussian cylinder. Okay, we have followed the first rule. Next we have to follow the second rule. What is that second rule? We have to calculate the total flux through the entire Gaussian cylinder, Gaussian surface, isn't it? Therefore, the total electrical flux through the Gaussian cylinder, suppose we can expect the electric flux in this direction, and in that direction also. Therefore, I have wrote phi is equal to phi 1 plus phi 2 plus phi 3. The definition of phi 1 says it is E A1 cos theta 1. Similarly for this and that. EA2 cos theta 2, EA3 cos theta 3. Theta 1 is the angle between E and A1. See, take a look here. E is along this direction, A1 is along this direction. So, the angle between E and A1 is 90 degree. Therefore, E A1 cos 90. Similarly, angle between E and A2 again 90 degree, cos 90 degree. Next, if we come to this area, the magnitude of this area is 2 pi r into L, 2 pi r L, cos theta 3. Take a look. E and A3 are along the same direction, therefore cos 0. Cos 0 is 1, cos 90 will be 0. Therefore, on simplification, we get E into 2 pi r L is equal to flux phi. Equation number 1. So, we have followed the second rule also. The final rule one should follow is, we have to equate this total flux with the actual Gauss law. That is, phi is equal to Q divided by epsilon naught. See, I have equated and I have compared these two. LHS are same, so RHS has to be same. So simplified and finally I have got E is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q divided by RL. Here, charge divided by length is nothing but linear charge density of that particular wire. Therefore, in place of Q by L, I have wrote lambda. You have to represent here because Q by L is equal to lambda, that is linear charge density. If you write it means better. Next, finally, if you want this expression, if you want to see this expression in vector form, then E vector is equal to 1 by 2 pi epsilon naught lambda by r into some unit vector n. Here the unit vector is a radial unit vector because that unit vector we have considered is perpendicular to the curved portion. Therefore, so this is the expression for electric intensity at a point due to an infinitely long uniformly charged wire using Gauss law. Okay. In the next class, let us derive the final derivation, that is the third application of Gauss. So that is expression for electric intensity at a point due to an infinite plane sheet which is uniformly charged. Okay. In the next class, so let's discuss about that. Anyhow, thanks for watching.